The Todd Shapiro Show.
Time to hit the button!
On Canada Talks, SiriusXM 167.
Well, this is exciting. We've never had this individual on the show before, but he joins us now. Please welcome from Vanbex Labs, Doug Dyson, a senior project manager. Hi, Doug.
Hey, how are you doing there, Todd?
I'm good, man. Whereabouts are you?
I'm in Vancouver, in the head office here, such as it is.
Good old Vancouver. You know, I've never been to Vancouver, man.
Oh, you should come, man. There's no floods or anything here.
It really is beautiful, isn't it? Are you from Vancouver?
No, actually, I am from Toronto. I moved to Vancouver maybe 6 or 7 years ago, it seems like. But I grew up in Toronto and got my start in Toronto, so it's in my blood. Lots of friends there still.
Tell me about like the differences before we start talking blockchain and stuff. What are there actually? Because you're a Toronto guy now, so you can be honest. Are there truly big differences between the two?
Yeah, there are. One is Toronto is truly a multicultural city. Every city says that, but it's entirely true in Toronto. I miss all the peoples hanging out together, and it's a beautiful thing in Toronto. We don't see that here as much. Like, people are all friendly and super nice and everything, but the real diversity of Toronto is quite amazing. I miss that quite a lot.
Oh, interesting.
I miss the music scene too. Like, I was a working musician in Toronto, and it's not as big here and hard to establish yourself. And I lost my fingers because I haven't been playing and stuff like that.
Oh man, I never had any of them. I never did. So you moved to Toronto, and then you're working for the Vanbex Labs, and I'd love to find out what that's. It's neat. We usually talk to Kevin Hobbs, and I love Kevin, but it's easy for the bosses to tell you how everything's so great, Kevin and Lisa, and we're very grateful to have a wonderful partnership. But one thing that every time I'm hanging out with Kevin, I have like these moments of clarity, these moments of being a sponge and learning, and I find him a very, very intelligent guy, but I also find him very inspirational stuff. Is there that type of culture over there for you at Vanbex?
Yeah, for sure, and that comes from the top. Kevin is a real visionary. Like, I've been here for a year, and I am still learning stuff about the blockchain from Kevin, and I thought that was pretty sharp. So, bringing his vision to life here it's been super exciting. I'm really enjoying it. And because he has this innovative, pioneering spirit, we try to bring that into the lab's culture. And so while I'm the project manager here, I lead all the DevOps, all the engineers and product designers, but I consider myself more of a coach. So software is a team sport. Like, you need everyone to play their position, play together well to deliver and get over the line. And so you need a culture where people feel empowered, so that they're always learning. And that there's some self-direction, that they're doing things their way, but there's shared goals so people all know what they have to do. The other key thing we have here, I think, that sets us apart, some other companies do this, is on Fridays, there's really self-directed. So if you need to learn something, go ahead and learn it. If you need to get ahead on something you're working on or catch up, go ahead and do it. If you have a new idea and you want to start exploring it, grab someone and do it. And so that's like part of that pioneering spirit we do all the time. It's really part of who we become here.
I love to hear that, man. I think a lot of people would, sort of be envious to hear that workplaces are so synergetic and so, open and fun and about learning and stuff. I think that's really wonderful. And tell us about working for, a blockchain company in such an ever evolving and changing industry. There's so much still to learn within the blockchain. You as employees, you said you learned from Kevin. Are you getting it? And then how do you explain that to customers, to clients, to general public, to really understand where we're going with this?
Yeah, that's a real challenge, Todd, because the blockchain is so new, and the ways that it is described in the blockchain community, like trustless. If I told my mom the system is trustless, she just wouldn't trust it. Right, so even some of the language is very difficult to penetrate. Some of the things that we've been really focusing hard here on Vanbex is removing all of these barriers to adoption. So, for instance, we do lots of user testing. So we put users in front of screens, in front of even just pen and paper, and drawing through processes and what things may look like. And so because we invest heavily in understanding the user experience, like the average user, people who are not blockchain people, it's been really educational because the technology is hard to penetrate. So, for instance, like the cloud, when the cloud first came out, you would say, well, it's on the cloud. What does that mean? Everyone was very scared of it. I'm going to put my data on someone else's computer. That sounds like a horrible thing to do. But now, we see it's part of our day-to-day. So part of
you pay $20 a month for it.
Now you pay for it. I remember, when before Salesforce, you would never give your sales data to an outside company. It would be the craziest thing you could ever do. So we're really focusing on the removing barriers to adoption. And so some of that is like just selling the solution and not the technology, if that makes sense. So you don't say, I'm not selling smart contracts or I'm not selling blockchain. I'm selling here. It's a better way to do something, a faster, cheaper, better way to do something.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that, man. That makes a lot of sense. That's the interesting thing about being the pioneer of a new industry and being a company that's so heavily involved in being those pioneers, is that there is a lot of adaption and then adoption, really. And it's funny because it's you mentioned Kevin being that visionary again, Kevin Hobbs being the CEO of the company, and it's like it's hard to keep up with visionaries because they're sort of looking at it at a point that they think everyone will be looking at it, say 5-10 years from now. And when you look at Steve Jobs, you look at any of these types of big personalities in the tech space, especially Mark Zuckerberg. We've all seen that story, the social network and stuff. It's like they had an idea where this would be, but it takes people time. Why do you think it is that humans are so hesitant to kind of accept new change in tech?
Well, I think a lot of it is there's a lot of psychological principles at play there. One of the things we're doing at Vanbex actually is our design team, we're doing some digital psychology studies. And you find some of these principles like loss aversion. I don't understand this, and so there's a fear of loss. And so loss aversion is something from behavioral economics. If you feel you're going to gain something or lose something, the fear of losing something is a very powerful impulse. So, if you don't trust or understand something, there's some fear there. I would think that would be it. And also one of the issues with the blockchain is, it went through similar to the .com boom, which did it over many years. Like the cryptocurrency was much more compressed than that, but it went through a big boom and there was a lot of disillusionment. And so, we're I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Gartner hype cycle where, everyone's jumping on board this crazy new idea and then all of a sudden it's not delivering and people are depressed. And people go, oh, hang on a second. We can actually do stuff with this. There is genuine value there. And so we're kind of raising that curve now. We've been through the big crazy ICO phase, which left a bad taste probably in some folks' mouths, especially people who would be outside the crypto or blockchain space might be a little wary. But now we're seeing enterprises come in at a huge rate. I follow the news very, very carefully on a daily basis. We see more and more large institutions making significant investments in blockchain solutions and applications.
Yeah, that's the other thing, because I obviously follow the industry on through Vanbex and other partners, and I've been at many different blockchain conferences, and I try to be a sponge from visionaries. But in this case, it was a really interesting industry because so many people were tying it into cryptocurrency, and then through the skyrocket of crypto last year to its sort of ultimate crash to now, like all of a sudden, wow, there's resurgence. And I think that's separate from the blockchain, but that's what we're seeing now again, which is, hey, the pandemonium kind of left for a bit. But now it's like, how is this more practical? And you're right, there are big-time organizations, big-time companies who are not only adopting crypto into their space, but blockchain is a solution and a solution-based business and big business. And that's why I always tell people, be careful with your investments, but try to stay ahead of the trends, because you don't want to just be caught up on something again when everyone is talking about it. Like, your Uber driver's telling you about it. You kind of want to get ahead of that game.
Yeah, I started my professional life at Fidelity Investments, so I spent over a decade in the back office of Fidelity Investments. And, they're making a very, very serious play there. I know that their innovation culture is just astounding. Even when I was there decades ago, they have their own internal trade show where all the different technology or services and applications from across the enterprise get together and do a show just so people can discover what other people are working on. There's that much innovation there. So their culture is so strong, and seeing them come in, I read somewhere that there are potentially more people working in the blockchain space at Fidelity than there are combined in a lot of the other independent shops. So those are huge. They're making a huge play there, and Fidelity Investments, like I said, they have a history of being successful innovators. They did, for instance, the first they were the first company that you could write a check on your money market account, for example. So they're real innovators.
Wow, that's really cool to hear. What about the big banks that maybe are more familiar names for us, like the TD banks or the Royal Banks or Scotia Banks? Is it only a matter of time before they start sort of getting into the blockchain technology as well?
Yeah, they're all in there. Like a great example in Canada is the National Bank of Canada. So they've done. They're going into their third proof of concept with a different different securities or debt instruments. So I know the head of the innovation lab there. We've chatted several times, and they've even empowered their innovation lab. They're not encumbered by all of the strict kind of IT governance and securities that are around legacy systems to protect everyone. So they're free to experiment. So that just shows you how committed they are. They're letting them get ahead of the curve. Yeah, I would really, like I said, National Bank. They've done some great proof of concept work there, doing things like zero proof consensus and things of this nature to try to get around the transaction capacities and limitations, frankly, of the blockchain at this time.
Man, this is real fun talking to you, Doug. You're a very, very, very knowledgeable guy. Doug Dyson there in the Vanbex Labs in Vancouver. What sort of mom and pa shop style of business how could the blockchain benefit them?
Okay, that's a great question. So yeah, it's hard to even though the promise of a democratized, decentralized economy, it's hard. All networks there will eventually arise in all networks some node that's more connected than all others. I was looking yesterday and today at the BCSC exemptions around crowdfunding and portals. And there are some great use cases for crypto crowdfunding, for example, that are very easy to meet from a compliance perspective. So people who may have been fearful or wary before of cryptocurrency and blockchain, they can take comfort now that these things are all compliant with the existing regulations, and so all those protections would apply to them. So that's a great use case where, for instance, in BC here, if you were going to use an exemption, you could only raise $1 million. Not a lot of money, but as a mom and pop shop, that might be a lot of money, right? So you may be looking to bottle. It's your first new recipe you're looking to bottle. You need $75,000, $100,000 to get your first run going. So I think that, the frameworks are in place to do that, and that's something we're exploring now. So yeah, I think you could be a mom and pop shop and take advantage of it, 100%.
Excellent. And of course, reach out to Vanbex, vanbex.com for any of your blockchain solutions. Hanging out with Doug Dyson. The one question that I ask sort of repeatedly of people in the industry is North America behind still when it comes to blockchain and the acceptance of it? Is this something that we would see more, say, in Asia, Europe? Do people talk about it more?
I would say that it's not really the technology that's the issue. It's the frameworks around it. So right now, PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC did a study and showed that pretty much 50% of all blockchain activity is happening in the financial services area, and so that's a very heavily regulated industry. And so, but the blockchain wasn't built for centralized control or even from its very core, it was not built to be a centralized, regulated entity. And so trying to square that circle and reconcile those two things is a challenge. But it's not a fault of the technology, it's just the way the technology is being applied currently. So I think countries that are like Switzerland, Malta, like these countries that are very progressive and really encouraging blockchain and crypto development because they understand that's where the new economy will be. These jurisdictions are going to be miles ahead of other jurisdictions.
It's interesting because the blockchain is there's this sort of decentralized aspect to it, but it's also very secure and protected and much more secure. Will we start seeing the blockchain in things like nuclear power plants or weaponry and stuff like this?
I'm not so sure. Like the beauty of blockchain is that it's distributed, and it's append only. You can't destroy data, and that you can trust it. So there are a lot of blockchain cases that don't require decentralization, but blockchain is still good, like a permission blockchain. So perhaps I think maybe in like the quote unquote military industrial complex, if you have a consortium where you have some suppliers that are working together to create some sort of weapon or military ordinance, the blockchain would be useful because therefore they would have one common way to exchange their data and not have to necessarily reconcile all their different computer systems and make sure all the information flowing back and forth is all matching up. So from that perspective, it could be. I think you'll see it more, though, for consortiums where it's like industry-level software. It's great. You have, for instance, you're the Insurance Association. I used to be a director at the insurance where we used to get all of the claim data from every single insurance provider, and do actuarial analysis on it. That's a great use case for the blockchain as an example.
And one of the things that often comes up for people who've been listening to our program over the last year and stuff is how great blockchain would be for smart contracts, and we're starting to see that roll out and stuff. Have we another type of war and weaponry? Have we seen yet a prenup on the blockchain, a prenup agreement?
I have seen a divorce contract.
Yeah, have you?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I have seen a divorce contract.
So maybe
I guess that's maybe a pessimist. That's the pessimist person, I guess. They didn't do the prenup.
Well, I mean, yeah, pessimistic and not. I mean, stats show that there's high divorce rates and stuff. So how would that work then? You get divorced and explain how that might work. A smart contract for a divorce.
Well, the example I saw was very rudimentary. It was a proof of concept. So in this case, obviously you have the names, which are identities, which are verifiable, via the blockchain. And really, they had a section for the terms. So what you were basically doing is you were, in a public ledger, agreeing to these terms. So in this case, you would consider that to be a legally binding type of transaction. So there wasn't a lot of, it wasn't routed through any kind of legal parameters or checks against it. Is this actually a legitimate condition or types of things that a divorce lawyer might bring forward. But it was a great way to demonstrate how legal contracts can be applied to the blockchain.
Very cool, man. I really like to watch and see this technology in all different aspects. Even if I try and ask a humorous question, it sort of does make sense. And we'll see if that proof of concept does start being a big matter of fact of life. And I would assume that really just a great way of tracking stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Because it's append only, you can't destroy data. Like I said, the data is very trustworthy just by the nature of the blockchain. And again, it's sometimes there is a need for centralization, like we all have different use cases. But for example, again, for supply chain lines or industries that are all working together, like a public-private partnership, where all these contractors and financial banks and subcontractors and suppliers, and they all have to work together, and they all work together on all the same projects. So, and they all have their own systems and have to invoice each other and reconcile all these things. So clearly a blockchain in that use case would be just dynamite, would just blow away. But they would save so much money and accelerate their whole process, really, with a blockchain.
I'm dumbing this down in my own brain, but I'm sort of doing my own cottage build right now, and I'm acting as the general contractor. And I'm like, man, the scheduling that what we could have done on a blockchain would have been just brilliant, holding people accountable, maybe taking penalties if they didn't show up on time or do their job, because that affects the next trades. But then the next trades will be notified. If a certain trade wasn't there and then the next one was supposed to come in, they would know that they could wait a couple days, but then they would maybe make a note on it saying, well, now we have another job, so we actually can't be there for 6 days, so that would affect the next trade. And really the reconciling it all, it actually would be beyond brilliant. And I think what might be brilliant on the GC side, or the builder or the homeowner or whatever, is that maybe there could be penalties associated with that to keep everyone sort of more on track, and also on the contractor side a secure way of releasing funds when job was done, so they wouldn't have any nerves either in the process.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great concept. And I would even take that concept further, where maybe you could actually source out and have some competitive bidding on some of these things within that ecosystem. Would be super cool.
Dude, can we stop talking right now and just get together and get a whiteboard and make this happen? I love it, Doug.
I like your idea is awesome. There was a guy who came from construction and was trying to find a similar type of solution at the tactical level, let's execute this project. But you could certainly layer a marketplace over top of that and really rev it up.
I love it, man. Well, Doug, it's really nice. You're really, really nice. Don't get me wrong. I love talking to Kevin and the rest of the team. But it's very clear that Vanbex and Vanbex Labs hires only the best. Very knowledgeable, very well spoken, and super cool and calm, man. It's always neat to just catch up with everyone within the organization. And
I'm the Zen, I'm the Zen side of Kevin, We need to get some Zen here.
Well, that's very cool. I need some Zen in my life too. I'm a very high anxious. Whenever Kevin and I get together, we just vent with each other. That's why we're such good friends. But we do appreciate not just the Zenness to you, but the knowledge. And get those fingers back, will you? Don't forget about your passion in music when you have time.
Yeah, thank you, sir. You have a great day.
Okay, Doug Dyson, everyone from Vanbex Labs, and talking blockchain. Really love doing that.
This is the Todd Shapiro Show on Canada Talks, SiriusXM 167.